Perfect. Perfect. Perfect.
Hello and welcome to this Hello and welcome to this week's live episode of Elite Sports Insider, the only show about CrossFit where you don't ever have to watch the host do workouts. We are a weekly live show delving into news about CrossFit, the CrossFit Games, the greater CrossFit community of gyms, members, and professional athletes. Let's get started. I am your host, Ben Garvis, and today is Sunday, the 31st of May, 2020. This week on Elite Sports Insider, we will get you caught up on the latest news, review a new book by Samantha Briggs called Start Your Engines, My Unstoppable CrossFit Journey, and we will kick off a 6-week series introducing you to athletes who have earned invites to the 2020 CrossFit Games in Aromas, California. This week, CrossFit has returned in-person training seminars to their calendar, with some states relaxing rules around public gatherings. As of writing this, CrossFit Level 1 seminars are in the books for Florida, Virginia, and Oklahoma. Level 2 seminars are slated for Ohio and Idaho up through the first week of June. From there, the calendar opens up more broadly with nearly 100 physical L1 and L2 courses scheduled between June 7th and August 1st. Those will likely remain flexible due to state and municipal regulations, but it also looks like online courses are here to stay, with 2 CrossFit Kids online courses scheduled in July. On the heels of CrossFit's announcement that they are decreasing the competitive field of the 2020 CrossFit Games and moving them to Aromas, it was announced by the Alliant Energy Center that they are going to furlough 18 staff members until public events resume in Wisconsin. According to the county executive Joe Parisi's office, a furlough lasting through the end of the year could save the county about $800,000. The CrossFit Games isn't the only major annual event the Alliance Energy Center hosts. They also host the World Dairy Expo, the Dane County Fair, and the world's largest Brat Fest. Yum. Brats. In a press release 2 weeks ago, CrossFit announced the national champion field would be cut from the 2020 CrossFit Games. This included the cancellation of a team competition this season. The decision was a pragmatic one, as CrossFit looks to resize the event to fit the rules and regulations it expects in California when the event runs in August. The trimmed field will now include only the top 20 male and top 20 female athletes from the CrossFit Open and the athletes who qualified through the 10 sanctionals, which were able to run before lockdown happened. On the men's side, this means the return of popular American and Canadian athletes like Patrick Vellner, Matt Fraser, Noah Olson, Jacob Hepner, and Cole Sager. What wasn't clear is whether athletes outside of North America, like Björgvin, Karl Gudmundsson from Iceland and Roman Krenikov from Russia, will be able to travel for the competition. On the women's side, this is a much deeper issue, as only 8 athletes are in North America, among them Brooke Wells, Carrie Pierce, Tia Claire Toomey, Carol-Ann Reason-Tebow, and Danny Spiegel. In doubt, due to potential travel restrictions, could be Sarah Sigmundsdottir, Kristen Holta, Jamie Green, Emma McQuaid, Kara Saunders, and Laura Horvath. Impacted by the removal of the national champion rule are a number of athletes outside the top 20 who received invites as overflow from a national champion or a team invitee. Those could be Brooke Hawes, Haley Adams, Caroline Prevost, Zach George, Chandler Smith, and former Games champions Katrin Davidsdottir and Ben Smith. CrossFit noted that given the reset, they contacted all original CrossFit Open invitees and gave them a second chance to accept or decline their invites. And yes, Rich Froning still has declined in favor of his own Mayhem Madness team competition he'll be hosting in Cookeville the following week. Prominent national champions losing their CrossFit Games invites through this change include Alessandra Pacelli, Tammy Robinson, Brenda Castro, Willie George, Jason Smith, Luke Fizo, Lucas Esslinger, and Nikolai Biedel. In the bottom section of the press release, CrossFit clarified how the 2021 season will look. They intend to bring back the age group divisions along with the national champion invites. This should come as a huge relief to many athletes concerned about the future of those two initiatives. I am so sorry to the athletes impacted. If you want to share your opinions and talk through this on the show, don't hesitate to reach out to me at ben@woddity.com. CrossFit had to make a very tough decision, and one nobody wanted to make, but they did what they could so that they could preserve the sport for a season. We'll be back with this topic at the end of the show. We're going to be sharing some all-new 2020 CrossFit Games invitee profile videos, talking through athletes' strengths, event wins, and backgrounds. Doing as many of those as we can churn out each week leading up to the games. But first, let's head over to the couch and talk about the new book from Samantha Briggs. Thanks, Ben. I sat down a few times this week to try to write my review of Start Your Engines, My Unstoppable CrossFit Journey by 2013 CrossFit Games champion Samantha Briggs. Each time I found myself at a loss because it was so good, so funny, so inspirational, and I learned just how little I actually knew about Briggs, her journey, and her motivation. Not to mention I got to Google a couple of curious things, like trying to figure out what a stickle brick was. The book starts with Briggs's younger years, her love of all sports, a rough foray into ballet, and zeroes into a major life change she went through as she made an attempt at her college education. Through lack of exercise and a close relationship with alcohol, Samantha Briggs was not always one of the world's greatest athletes. But she stands as a testament to the fact that it is never too late for you to claw yourself back to health, and possibly even elite level fitness. Briggs then takes us on a journey through being a triathlete, a fire chief, a rowing champion, a professional soccer player, and finding CrossFit in her late 20s. She overcomes injuries, a foot, a knee, an elbow, a back, another foot. She trains, she mentors, she coaches. Through all of it, she's humble. She never stops her relentless pursuit of growth. And that's my biggest takeaway from Start Your Engines, that it's never too late. You're never too old, you're never too out of shape, never too busy, too important to learn, to grow, and to inspire. So the question is, should you read this book by Sam Briggs? Let me ask you this. Do you like good books? Because I gave it 10 out of 10 fingers. You heard it here first. It is truly a great book, and you are going to find yourself surprised over and over again. Now, I'm going to wrap things up with this live session, but stick around because we have introduction videos for our first batch of athletes who have qualified to the CrossFit Games. They include Cole Sager, Andrea Nisler, Björgvin, Karl, Gudmundsson, and more. If you heard something or saw something on this show today that you want to check out more in depth, you can check the show notes down below. You can also check WODDITY.com. There is, of course, a link in the description of this video. You can also find the like, share, and subscribe buttons down there too, just something to think of while you're down there visiting. If you want more CrossFit news, check out the WODDITY podcast. We do it Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. For WODDITY, I am Ben Garbus. Thank you for watching and enjoy our first batch of videos featuring athletes who have qualified for the 2020 CrossFit Games in Aromas, California. After competing 4 times on teams at the CrossFit Games, Andrea Nisler of the United States has earned her first ever individual invitation to Aromas. She's bringing with her all the experience of a tenured athlete, including Team OC3's podium finish at the 2018 Games in Madison. Nisler has qualified this year by placing top 15 in the CrossFit Open, a major comeback from skipping the Open in 18 and 19, and growth from her 2 top 100 finishes in 2015 and 2017. As a competitor, Nisler is not a stranger to strong performances. She put in 3 top 25 workouts in October's Open and took 3rd in the 2019 Granite Games Championship. It was at that sanctional Nisler earned her first individual event win, stunning fans with the odd object and squat-oriented bear press workout. We've seen great skill from her in odd object work, but she's also churned out many strong performances in events with a deadlift, squat, and anything moving weight overhead. Björgvin Karl Gudmundsson, lovingly known as BKG, is a 2-time podium finisher at the CrossFit Games, taking 3rd place in Carson in 2015 and again in Madison in 2019. This will be Gudmundsson's 6th consecutive CrossFit Games appearance, which is a career that hasn't seen him place outside the top 8 in the leaderboard since 2014. The 2020 CrossFit Open was the 9th time Björgvin has participated, his 8th time placing top 100, 7th time top 50, and 4th time top 10, all by the age of just 27. He brought his dominating manner home with him in 2019, winning the first ever Reykjavik CrossFit Sanctional as icing on a cake that includes 2 Meridian regional titles in 2016 and 2017. That makes Björgvin one of the few athletes to perform just as well on the field as he does in online competitions. There are 4 movements fellow competitors should fear when facing off with Gudmundsson: the row, the muscle-up, double unders, and the deadlift. For example, his prowess with muscle-ups and rowing placed him 3rd in Open 20.5, and the combination of double unders and muscle-ups pulled him up the leaderboard in Open 18.3. Gudmundsson won 2017 Meridian Regional Event 3 using double unders and defeated world champion Matt Fraser with his proficiency at muscle-ups at the 2018 Dubai CrossFit Championship Event 5. Hailing from the Pacific Northwest, former University of Washington Husky running back Cole Sager has earned his 7th consecutive invitation to the CrossFit Games this year. Sager finished the CrossFit Open in 19th, his 4th top 50 finish of his career. As a regional and sanctional competitor, Cole climbed from 13th at the 2014 Northwest Regional to take an overall win at the event the next year. His sanctional performances include 3rd place at 2019's Rogue Invitational and 2nd at 2020's Wodapalooza. In his CrossFit Games appearances, Sager has finished top 10 3 times, narrowly missing the spot in 2019 when his placing in 11th made him miss the final cut to 10. One place where few challenge Cole's proficiency is with thrusters and rope climbs. He has 3 regional event wins when those 2 movements are paired: Event 2 in 2015, Event 7 in 2016, and Event 6 in 2018. Sager is also great with a heavy barbell and odd object work, winning the 2014 Regionals Max Snatch event and Rogue Invitational's Go Ruck. I want to get this right, so I'm going to be reading off of my laptop. This video tosses out every interpersonal and professional relationship I've tried to build in this industry. It will alienate me. It will outcast WODDITY and the business I've built around that brand name for the last 2 years. Every late night of writing, recording, and editing, it will succumb to and be crushed by the old boys club that is CrossFit and the media teams reporting on it. This video specifically calls out high-level individuals at the pinnacle of our sport and our community, but it would be wrong for me to not say anything about this. If you're not familiar with the George Floyd situation in Minnesota or the subsequent protests around the world, I'm glad you're here for this conversation. If you want to watch a brief but graphic recap of what happened to Floyd, I've put a link to it, to a Washington Post article in the show notes that will help you understand what's going on. George Floyd had the police called on him after a shopkeeper suspected he had been given counterfeit currency for a purchase Floyd made. Footage shows officers respond, confronting and handcuffing him. For a while, views of what transpired are obstructed, but footage from a bystander who started filming shows us a horrific scene. Floyd begging, "Please, I can't breathe," while an officer crushed his throat with a knee. While officers called for a medical team, the officer in question kept his knee on Floyd's throat, even after Floyd appeared to be unconscious. Bystanders tried to step in. The officer's knee remained. Paramedics showed up. The officer's knee remained. More than 8 minutes pass of Floyd being suffocated before the officer in question removes pressure from Floyd's throat. Floyd is placed in an ambulance and later declared dead. In February, I ran a diversity special on the WODDITY podcast. I invited CrossFit. They told me I was gaslighting. I invited prominent members of former media staff. Some agreed to participate, but then disappeared when it became time to contribute. I reached out to more than 30 CrossFit athletes. Some read the invite and didn't respond. Some responded positively and then disappeared when it came time to participate. And some just blatantly ignored the request. I reached out to hundreds of CrossFit affiliate owners, and in a survey, very few thought the community had a diversity problem. This week, someone reached out to me about the George Floyd situation and asked, based on my previous diversity special, if I was going to talk to my community about what was happening. And I'm ashamed, because my response was that I no longer thought my community cared about what was happening. And then John Woolley from Make WODs Great Again posted something to his famous Instagram account. It was a picture with the question, "How are the CrossFit Games different than other sports?" The picture on that post was of a Crest noticeably white toothpaste label. Woolley's caption to the post reads, quote, "Very few in the CrossFit space seem to be willing to discuss race and the tragedies that are currently happening, so I will. We have a diversity problem, and it starts with us using our voice and actions to support our fellow man against injustice. Only then will we have truly created an environment that is welcoming and inclusive of all. Let's be willing to have the conversation, really listen to outside viewpoints, and most importantly, stand against discrimination when we see it." End quote. One of the top comments on the post is what inspired this specific video. It was from Talking Elite Fitness host and Morning Chalk Up contributor Tommy Marquez. Tommy wrote that he made sure to often discuss racial issues. Well, unfortunately, Marquez was on the list of media members I invited. He accepted, and then he disappeared. Rick Stevens is a popular sports photographer. He accepted, then disappeared. Easy Muhammad is a CrossFit Games athlete. He accepted, and then disappeared. But now it's all of a sudden popular to talk about these issues, so Marquez chimes in. Suddenly he cares enough to participate. Easy Muhammad takes to Instagram about the nightmares he has about race relations in this country, and he asks, quote, "What if it were me?" So to Easy, I wish you had talked to me about this 6 months ago. Maybe we could have started some change in this community. To Tommy, I have never doubted that you're a good guy and that you wholeheartedly care about the community and its diversity. And that's specifically why I reached out to you. Jonathan Haynes from CrossFit Incorporated, when I approached you about CrossFit joining in on this conversation, you wrote me that I was gaslighting and that it wasn't a topic worth discussion or even relevant to our community. Yet this week you write on Twitter, quote, "Anyone can join in on despising and working to eradicate racism," end quote. That's true, Jonathan. You can work on it too. Zach George, I reached out to you. Yesterday you posted, quote, empathy is not enough, end quote. I agree with you. You could have taken action too, but you're only making time for this now. Ant Haynes, Brenda Castro, Steph Chung, Tola Moraquino, Dre Strom, Chandler Smith, China Cho, Jason Kalipa. I reached out to all of you. Where were you when it mattered? Why does this matter now? Why didn't it matter then? I've lived in some of the poorest neighborhoods of the Mississippi River Delta. I've gone to a historically black college. Protests marched 2 blocks from where I live in Brooklyn. My college roommate and his closest friends from that era of my life, my closest friends from that era of my life, are all intimately impacted by these issues, which is why I've always made it a priority to talk about them. And why it cuts me so deeply now that these things are happening. And people who didn't care when it wasn't popular are talking about it. I started my week thinking the community didn't care. And now I'm finishing my week thinking the community did care. It just wasn't popular enough to be worth their time. I'm angry, I'm disgusted, I'm sad, and I'm embarrassed. Matt Chan tweeted a picture of a protester with a sign reading, quote, "If you're neutral in situations of injustice, you've chosen the oppressor."